Welcome to Rising Tide Startups, where today's most exciting solopreneurs share their startup stories. They also deliver tangible strategies that they would implement personally if starting their business over today. Each episode is a startup masterclass. Make sure you take notes. Take it away, Kevin.
This is Kevin Pruitt with Rising Tide Startups, and my guest today is Dylan Ogline. Dylan, thanks for joining us on Rising Tide.
Hey, Kevin, thanks so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So I'd like you to share just a little bit about yourself with our listeners.
Sure. So, right now I own a digital marketing agency called Ogline Digital. And basically we focus on direct response digital marketing solutions, which that's the fancy way of putting it, that we manage people's Facebook and Google ads. That's what we're doing for our clients. And then I also have an education company where I teach people. I have a training program where I teach people how to start and grow their own digital agency. And that's pretty much what I'm focused on right now. And I'll let you take it from there, I guess.
Well, you kind of skipped over a whole lot of
I know. I don't know how much into the backstory you want to dive into.
Because I think they're going to find this really interesting. I mean, it's not like you just woke up at 22 and just, somebody had handed you a new MacBook and you were off and running. So walk us through the kind of a quick recap of the earlier days.
Sure. The quick recap. So I started my first business when I was 14, selling cell phones on eBay. This is back, for context, I'm 31. This is 2003-ish, 2004. This is when, the pre-iPhone, all that stuff. This is when the best cell phones were in Europe, and like America, for some reason, we were really lacking. So all the smartphones were from Europe. And as like a nerd, when I was that age, I really wanted one. And I don't know, I stumbled upon this wholesale company. I applied to be a wholesaler and they approved me somehow, some way. So I was able to buy these European smartphones for wholesale price, ship them to the United States, pay all the fees and whatnot, and then flip them on eBay and make $50 to $100.
Now, these were unlocked, and they weren't GSM or whatever the standard was. They actually worked in the US.
They worked in the US. Technology has changed so much since then. I don't think you had to deal with the unlocked issue at the time. I could be wrong. I remember. I know back then you just had like the standard SIM card, and it was as simple as just slapping in your SIM card. Like that was pretty much it.
And these were like Motorola Razors and that era?
Yeah, the Motorola Razor was like the number one seller, but there was...
I had one of those in Europe.
I had like 3 of them. Sony Ericsson, I think, made a really... this is...
Nokia had their own versions. Ago. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, this is a long time ago. That was the very first business. And...
that came to a crashing halt that I seem to remember when somebody found out that we maybe we weren't the age of necessity to open an account or something like that. Am I making that up?
No, that's pretty much correct. It wasn't the wholesale company. It was my merchant account. I forget who it was through, but you had to do like the tax form or whatnot, and I put my date of birth, and they were like, "You're a little too young for this," so they shut down my merchant account.
Back in 4 years.
Yeah. So that got shut down. And so fast forward 12 years, and I spent a lot of time bouncing around from the shiniest object to the next shiny object, just bouncing around, not getting anywhere. I was always doing kind of because I had experience in like building my own website, or when I was 14, like I had to create my own logo, so I did that. Because I had that kind of experience, I would get jobs building websites, doing the logo. I was doing everything for everybody. You needed a logo, I was your guy. You needed a PowerPoint, talk to me. I could get it done for you. You needed banners, boom, I could get it for you. I did everything for everybody. And I also dropped out of high school, so I didn't have a backup plan to follow.
Well, you were too busy flipping phones. Who has time for school?
Yeah, I was like, I'm hawking phones on eBay. So I quit school, and which was not smart. Don't do that, kids. Stay in school. So then I bounced around I had a Kindle publishing company. That one is kind of embarrassing because it was we focused on uh, Amish romance novels. I'm actually kind of proud of this. For a period of time, I was the number one publishing company in the world for Amish romance novels on Kindle. Like, boom,
You should
that
get a
was me.
tattoo that says that.
I'm gonna add that to like my LinkedIn page or something. So it was bouncing around, getting nowhere, making nothing, and it was like at the end of 2016. I had a conversation with a long-term mentor, and the basics of the conversation were focus on one single thing. Stop going in so many different directions. That's why you're not getting anywhere. And the thing that you focus on, make sure that it can scale up and that it's high profit margin. You don't want to be, playing around in Kindle publishing where the profit margin's pretty low. So I scrapped everything and I just focused on my agency work and just focused on one single service, which was the digital marketing management.
And this was what year approximately?
It's the end of 2016. And I had never I was just obsessed with hitting six figures. I had never hit six figures at that point. 2017, I hit multiple six figures. And then 2018 is the first year I did seven figures.
I'm curious. So it's easy to look back at, kind of the journey you've taken, and it's okay. I landed on something. My mentor gave me some advice. I drilled down. I focused on something, and it's kind of paid off, exponentially, obviously, kind of hockey stick, growth up and to the right
100%.
here.
Yeah.
But if you started today, would you do the same thing? I mean, because the world has shifted, even with, say, Google ads and Facebook ads and how you market in those spaces. Is there something else that you would consider in lieu of looking at those?
Well, that's tough to say. If I were to start today with all the knowledge I have, absolutely I'll be doing what I'm doing, because I believe COVID just ramped things up to 100 with more people buying online, being at home, everything. So like this has been the best year for my business. We broke our record for best year last month. So we're going to have, good growth this year. It doesn't require much of my time. It's a fantastic business. I absolutely love it. If I spend an hour or two a week on it, I would be surprised if it's that.
Wow.
So yeah, I would absolutely be doing what I am doing right now. But go back 5 years ago, if you were to say that this is what I would be doing, absolutely not. There's no way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think I'd change it.
So how have you seen the change in the last 4 years in those particular spaces? I mean, how has Facebook marketing changed? How has Google AdWords changed? And the follow-up question might be, what's the next thing? What's the next big, space of ads?
Good question. So Google probably just gets a little bit better, slight tweaks. I mean, they've been around for so long, so it just gets a little bit better, but not much has changed with Google, I don't think. Facebook's algorithm, which is where the real magic sauce is with Facebook, it's not about targeting that you can do. It's about the targeting that the algorithm does, the AI does. That just it gets better and better every single day. It's ridiculous. When you have most people that have maybe played around with Facebook ads have kind of a rough concept of like, oh, you can target, because Facebook knows everything about you. You can target specifically soccer moms in Western Pennsylvania.
Right.
And that are
right Amish novels.
That write Amish novels. Yeah, you can get very, very targeted with that. And for me, since I've spent so much time on it and so much money in it, and I truly have a good understanding of it, it's not that stuff. It's the targeting that the algorithm does, where you can't even guess the specifics of who you're targeting. That has become extremely powerful. It was powerful 4 years ago, but now it just keeps getting better and better. The second part of your question, where are things going? I purposely try not to guess. I try not to play in the newest things, probably because I spent so much time in my past life with all of my failures chasing the shiniest object. If you were to ask me this 2 years ago, it would probably be like, well, maybe the Snapchat thing.
Mm-hmm.
But like nobody's really good at Snapchat ads yet. Now you got like TikTok. TikTok's more like just getting influencers and just like randomly hitting a home run.
Yep.
So I do see we do manage some YouTube ads. I feel video is going to continue to grow and grow and grow. But still, I personally I try to stick with the things that are tried and true that have been around for a few years, that I can learn from other people and not just try to like the people who are profitable with TikTok right now. They just randomly went to bat and hit a home run. It was just luck. With Facebook and Google, pretty much anybody, if you follow somebody else who like knows what they're doing, pretty much anybody could step into those spaces and have a very positive ROI.
I'm surprised you didn't mention Instagram at all.
With the brands that I'm working with, me personally, I don't play with Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
There's if you are like a clothing brand or a consumer
Right.
product type of brand, yes, Instagram can be very powerful. It's just not a space that I play in.
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting you because I I've interviewed a number of people and they've talked about using the AdWords and digital marketing space. And
Mm-hmm.
when I hear the word algorithm, I most often hear that associated with Google versus Facebook. So it's interesting that you've used that in Facebook, because they always talk about how Google changed the algorithm, and I want to date myself here and go back to Panda and Penguin and those shifts that occurred in Google, and how it just blew people's SEO up, or it shut their site down, or they went from 1,000 hits a day to 10 hits a day, in one day. So how do you kind of understand, without Facebook just sending you here's our brand new document on our algorithm, how do you understand that, from a marketing standpoint?
So I would add this as context. When I say algorithm and AI, I'm kind of using those interchangeably. So for like a deeper understanding here, when people are talking about the algorithm with Google, they're talking about how Google picks your search results.
That's more specific. Okay.
Yes. So if you type in dentist Orlando, I'm from Orlando. If you type in dentist Orlando, the organic search results that you see is chosen by an algorithm. I don't play in that space. That's a lot of SEO. While SEO is smart, you want to certainly make sure your website is SEO friendly and whatnot. I don't like some people. They plan ahead based on their SEO results. They're banking on those results. Mm-hmm. But the algorithm can randomly change.
Right.
I'm playing in the paid advertising space. So somebody types in Orlando dentist, the first result is going to be an ad. That you always have control over. As long as you're not getting banned or something or doing something stupid, like you have control of being first there. When it comes to the organic results, you don't have control of that. So like you said, somebody could be getting 1,000 hits a day, and then randomly Google changes the algorithm and now you're getting 10.
Mm-hmm.
So it's smart to, take advantage of SEO best practices, maybe have a blog and do guest posts, et cetera, et cetera. But you're kind of you don't know if you're going to get growth from that. You can't scale it up whenever you want. I don't think, planning your growth based on SEO is very smart.
Yeah.
So yeah. Did that answer your question?
Absolutely. And it was a great clarification between, how we may use terms interchangeably that may be meaning different things. So
sure.
You mentioned a second ago about, go ahead and finish if you had something else to add.
No, I just remembered now. I was going to, when I'm talking about the Facebook algorithm or the Facebook AI, again, I'm using those terms interchangeably. So most people understand, how do I want to quickly explain this best? Most people understand whenever you're targeting an ad, let's say you're a dentist in Orlando and you want to create dental ad on Facebook. Used to be that you could get really specific and target. They kind of changed the targeting options, but you could target women that have children that are Republican between the ages of 40 and 60. That's
certain
a random
zip code, geographic
zip
areas.
code,
Yeah.
geographic. Yeah, you could get really specific. Okay. And now you still can get really specific, but they've kind of taken the options back a little bit. What we do is we'll create multiple ad variations, multiple pictures, multiple ad copy, and then we'll select like 20 different audiences. So I just gave that example of the women between such and such age, and then maybe a different one, women between such and such age, same geographic region, that have an interest in Oprah. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll throw up like 600 different versions of ads, that might sound like a lot of work. It's not, because you're copying a lot of things. And then the algorithm, the Facebook AI, will then target specific people based on those different variations. And then you just narrow down whichever ones are the most profitable. And I'm giving a really, really simple, quick explanation of what that is. So it might not make total sense, but how powerful that is, that you can throw up 600 variations of an ad and let the algorithm, the AI, basically figure out the targeting.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I can't even begin to describe how impactful that is when it comes to marketing.
And then just to add to that, I mean, I was listening to another, interview you had done earlier, and you said, once we figure that out, we can just add a zero to it, and
That's
virtually you're just scaling something that you have a pretty good, have more than anecdotal evidence that it's working, and you can kind of focus on the ones that are the most profitable.
100%. Absolutely. And like we were talking with SEO as an example, you can't scale up SEO. Once you've proven your Facebook ad or your Google ad, these tried and true methods, you just double your budget, or you triple your budget, or you add a zero, and boom, you're 10 times bigger. And that's oversimplifying it. There is a little bit of work there, but relatively speaking, that's what you do. And you can just crank up the growth and purchase more growth for your business.
Now, statistically, you talk about kind of a control group, and you have to have a credible number of people to have a really a substantive result. So if let's say you've thrown up 600, different ads out there, and 5 of them have really shown pretty significant results. Is it just a matter of scaling, or, I mean, have you really, I guess, are your results credible enough that you can just double down on that? Or is it, 5 people responded to it, and it looks like it's really active? You understand kind of the question. Are there enough people that are responding, even to the ones that look successful, to really cause you to say, man, we're going all in on these now?
You definitely want to take it a little slower than just 10x in your budget, unless you have the money. But yeah, once you start to, it's more common that if you had an ad that is, say you had got 3x return, just throwing that number out there, you did those 600 ads, and 10 of them got a 3x return, and they're profitable. If you just copy those ads and you increase the budget on those few ads, you're probably going to get the same results going as you scale up. Yeah. It's a little bit more complicated than just adding a zero.
Right.
But in relative terms, that's basically what you're doing.
And are the results different? Like if you look at 2 different ads and the results are relatively the same, is one that you may have been a lot more specific on versus one you've been a lot more general on? Is the specific ad worth more, in essence, than the one that's a little more general, even if it's the same return on investment?
What do you mean by specific?
Well, like, let's say that you have 10 factors that you've used,
your targeting factors,
demographic targeting factors, versus say 3, but both of those ads had a 3x return. So is the 10 virtually more valuable because it's more specific than the other one?
Well, generally speaking, what we practice is keeping them more broad than specific, especially if you're doing certain regions.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing, say, the whole nation, then you probably should get a little bit more specific. But we try to keep it relatively broad. And typically, say you're testing, you say you have 10 different ads that were profitable. The number of things that we target is probably the same across the board.
Right. And that would add to the credibility of the results too. I mean, it's easier to compare those, if they're similar, just come like an A/B testing, type thing.
Yeah. So one thing I would add there is when people are thinking of targeting, like the random stuff I just shouted out, age, women that have kids that are Republican, right? Like that's just broad sense targeting that most people are thinking of. Facebook is tracking, like, as you're scrolling through your phone, how fast you scroll,
wow,
how fast you type, the language you're using. And listen, it's not like Mark Zuckerberg sitting behind a computer like, oh, this person's very aggressive. Like
crazy guy in Virginia. You know what he's looking at? That's right.
Yeah, that's not what's going on here. But Facebook's tracking all this stuff, and they know they're comparing you and your psychological profile to other people. And they don't even understand, they don't even grasp what is happening. But they allow the AI, artificial intelligence, to kind of connect the dots and be like, these 10 people were shown your ad and they all clicked on it. We're going to find the next 1,000 people within the 100,000 people that you're targeting that are most like those other 10 people.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they don't even know why they are most like those 10 people. Again, it's not Mark Zuckerberg sitting behind his computer being like, well, let's show the ad to these 10 people. It's all just the AI, the algorithm looking at your entire psychological profile and being like, we think these 1,000 people are most similar to these 10 people. And we're going to show this ad that worked to these 10 people to these other 1,000 people. That's a game changer when it comes to marketing.
And does the ad cost, like per click or whatever per person, go up the more refined you get, the deeper you get in the process with Facebook?
If you get more targeted, typically, yes, it does get a little bit more expensive. But the algorithm getting better doesn't typically cost you anymore.
Mm-hmm. And I would have a feeling that in the last 4 years, you've kind of learned some things to, you're probably not, I would hate to use the term wasting money. You're probably not wasting ad spend at as much as you were previously, because you know kind of tricks and tips and ways to try to target specific markets that are a lot more cost effective.
Certainly, I mean, personally, yeah, I do consider myself to have gotten better. But I would add this. You mentioned like tips and tricks. When I'm teaching somebody Facebook ads or Google ads or anything like that, I tell people, don't look. You want to focus on I'm really big into 80-20 method. You want to focus on the 20% of your efforts that are going to get you 80% of the results. And then just keep doing that over and over and over again. So I just focus on getting better at the fundamentals. Are there tips and tricks and cheat codes to Facebook or Google?
Well, I didn't go quite that far. I was just saying. I meant, I've heard maybe learnings is a better word.
But I've seen ads where people literally, I've seen an ad where it was something like the cheat code to Facebook ads. I'm like, dude, there is no cheat code. And maybe some person figured out some setting or something that got them results, but it was probably they just randomly went to bat and hit a home run.
Yep.
They probably can't duplicate that with other people. But if you focus on the fundamentals, you can duplicate that over and over and over again. And as you continue to duplicate it, you get better and better. That's the stuff that I focus on.
It's interesting. You mentioned the Pareto principle, which is the 80-20 rule. So, but I have a feeling, and I'm not trying to push back here on this, but I have a feeling that you understand your 20 better than you did 4 years ago.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. But that's the point, is you get better and better at it.
Exactly.
Like I just kept beating on the fundamentals over and over and over again. And that's like I get feedback from students and they're like, I can't write good copy, or what's the secret to writing good copy? What's the secret to writing a good ad? And I'm like, it's really simple. Just keep writing ads over and over and over again, and you'll get better and better and better. Like, that's it. Like, there's nothing fancy. It's just, the reason I can
spell your words right.
That's right. Spell your words right. But just keep doing it. Like, how did you get better at riding a bike? Like, you probably went out there and you fell down a few times, and then you got back up and you just kept riding the bike. And now you can ride a bike with your eyes closed. Probably not recommended, but that's how you got better. You just kept doing it and doing it and doing it. And that's, very few people have natural born talent at anything. Especially nobody's born and they're like, well, he's a great copywriter. That doesn't happen. The only way you get better at these things is just continuously beating on your craft over and over and over again. And then you get better.
You mentioned something earlier in the conversation about, mentor and people you've learned from. And you mentioned something in another interview too about a mentor telling you to, it's something like the airline industry versus drilling for oil. Do you want to unpack that a little bit?
Yeah. So this was the conversation I had at the end of 2016 with a mentor. And so a little bit more context. At the time, I had like 10 business projects. It was going nowhere. Remember I mentioned I was chasing the shiniest object. And when I said about like focusing on the higher profit margin, his specific advice was stop trying to build an airline and instead drill for oil. And he goes on to explain that like the smartest business people in the world get into the airline industry and they still lose money because it's just a notoriously difficult industry to make money in. And the people that do make money, they just so happen to hit a home run. They were smart, but they just were in the right place at the right time. They chose the right market, and it was a lot of luck. And instead, you want to focus on something like the oil industry, which is a little bit more difficult to make money in now. But you could just be okay in that industry, put in the work, and you're probably going to make a lot of money. And if you end up being exceptionally great, you're going to be ridiculously rich. Whereas even if you're exceptionally great in the airline industry, you might not even make money. So he's like, I wasn't building airlines or drilling for oil, but he's like, you're doing these things like, I'll break it down a little bit more. So I mentioned like the Kindle publishing, right? Well, I learned to do that because I took somebody's training program. And the training program I took, the guy who taught it he was making like 10 grand a month. He was making 6 figures off of this Kindle stuff. Well, he was just really, really good at it. Like he just so happened to be exceptionally good at it. Like he hit a home run and then he just ran with it. Well, I was probably just going to end up being okay at it, which I was just okay at it. So I never made more than like $1,000 a month off of it.
You were number one.
I was really good.
We're number one.
Amish romance novels. That's my claim to fame right there. But even then, barely made any money off of it. Whereas like with the agency, with the digital marketing management, it's a high profit margin business. And like, 2017, I hit multiple 6 figures. I still wasn't that good at it yet, but I was still hit my financial goal. So the lesson there was simple: was focus on a business that is you could end up just being okay at or just kind of good at and still hit your financial goal.
Which is $1,923 or $1,923 a week.
1923 per week will get you to six figures, which was for those of you, I've talked about this before. So those of you, the listeners out there who don't know, I used to keep a spreadsheet, and because I didn't want to trick myself. Like I did, because say I sold a website, I might randomly get a check one week for $3,000. Oh, great! I'm on pace for six figures. No, I really wanted to be on pace for six figures. So I kept this spreadsheet that tracked my previous 23 week rolling average revenue, and 23 weeks because I'm obsessed with the number 23, and it's almost 6 months. And I just had it written down that I wanted to hit $1,923 in rolling average of revenue, which would mean that I'm on pace for six figures. I had that spreadsheet for the longest time, and then I think it was like March of 2017 is when it finally went over 1923, and I cried.
Tears of joy.
It was tears of joy. I remember I still had a bucket, because I didn't spend the money yet to buy a chair. I still had a bucket that I sat on in my basement office, and I put in that week's revenue, and it probably went over like 2,000, but it was like, oh my God, I went over. I'm over on pace for six figures, and I cried.
So the 23 is that it's either Michael Jordan or some Pittsburgh Penguin hockey player.
I still play hockey, but in high school I got to choose either 28 or 23, and I was like, I'm going to go with 23 because it's Michael Jordan.
Absolutely.
And I had the best year of my hockey career in quotes for those of you who can't see. So since then I've been obsessed with 23.
There you go. Well, I'm interested as you kind of talk about, the specifics of how you've launched your marketing agency, and let's as we're kind of wrapping up today, let's drill down really to speaking directly to the audience about, if they're thinking about launching something. And you use the term MVM, which is minimum viable marketing, I think in another chat you were having. And it's the same principle as kind of the MVP, the minimum viable product, or minimum viable service, or whatever. So unpack that just a little bit for somebody that is just thinking about starting, and how you would kind of mentor them through the process of drilling down on the idea and launching whatever their service or product is.
Sure. So this is any kind of product or service?
Anything. Yeah. Just you're speaking to people who are just wanting to get in the game.
Awesome. Okay. So the minimum viable product, minimal viable marketing, all that stuff is very related. And essentially, I'm really big into keeping things lean, mean, and scrappy. So you want to, in the beginning, prove that you have product market fit as fast as humanly possible. The best way to do that is to actually just do some marketing and sell your product or service, typically before it's ever built. So if you have a training program like I do, don't spend 6 months, a year, 2 years building out your training program and then go to sell it and find out that nobody wants it. So if you have an idea, you have a concept for a training program, and you haven't started building it yet, great. Go and sell it. Like, go out to who you think your ideal market is, your ideal client, and actually sell it. Use Google ads, use Facebook ads. That's the fastest way. Yes, it's going to cost you money, but it is worth it to get feedback from the marketplace. So maybe you have this training program and you need to change it into a different, you need to take it in a different direction. So you need to do a pivot. We always talk about pivots and startups in the tech space, right? Well, if you've spent 6 months, a year, 2 years building out your training program and you need to pivot, that's going to be very painful.
Yep.
You're going to resist that. But if you've never built it and you're trying to sell it, and you find out from your ideal clients that you need to pivot into a different direction, you're not going to have resistance to it because you haven't spent any time building it.
Right.
So actually get out there and sell your product or your service, ideally before you ever build it. And be honest with people. We're not scamming people here. I like to add that context.
Mm-hmm.
Like, say you're doing the training program, tell people, hey, I'm going to be starting the actual program 4 weeks from now, next month. Okay. Well, then you got 4 weeks to build it if you actually sell it. And if you don't end up building it, something happens, you just refund the people's money. And no harm, no foul. But it's much better to do that than to spend 2 years creating this concept in your head of the ideal product, only to find out that the market's like, we actually don't need that product.
Right, just
or service.
crickets. Yeah, crickets are expensive.
Yes.
They are certainly expensive. Well, Dylan, this has been great. I as a Facebook kind of novice, I mean, I obviously a user of Facebook, but a Facebook ads novice. So can you drill down to the point that I know you're kind of targeting specific, say, users, but can you target groups? Can you target, like if you have a group of 50,000 people out there, can you shoot an ad directly into that group using Google ads, or I'm sorry, Facebook ads, or is it more just the algorithm just has to somehow cross-reference those group members into what you're looking for?
I'm going to try to answer this best I can, because I think I understand what you're asking. Wait, let me back up. So give me a little bit more context here so I can.
Okay, let's say you have Amish writers that has a 50,000 member group out there, and you can see the group. You're not necessarily a member of it. You can see it. Mm-hmm. Can you buy an ad that specifically targets that group and it goes to all their members?
If there is an interest, man, I don't even know what it's called. I just know what it looks like in the Facebook ads when you're setting it. You target a certain interest. So it can be target people who like Tim Ferriss or something like that. And the algorithm, or when you're setting up your ad, it will tell you how many people are in there. If there is a large enough amount of people, and I don't know what the specific number is, I believe it's like over 100,000 people have to either like a page or something for them to allow it to be an interest. If that interest is there, then yes, you could create an ad that will target that entire group of Amish romance novel writers.
No, I'm talking about a specific closed group on Facebook.
Okay. So a specific closed.
Yeah, like I set up a group. I've got 49,999 other people out there that love the same thing I do. They're in my Facebook group, and you come along and you see my group online. Can you buy an ad in Facebook that targets my group, that my group just all of a sudden in their feed, they'll get that ad? Is it that granular?
To be honest, I don't have an answer for that because I've never done.
I'm gonna have to edit this out now that I've kind of stumped the expert here. So that wasn't intentional. Sorry.
No. This is actually a good thing because it shows like I don't know all the specifics. I focus more on the fundamentals. So this is something that's outside of my space. I've never wanted or needed to do that. I would be very surprised if you can't. I'm trying to envision in my head.
But it may be very expensive because it's so targeted.
Well,
so
the expense, it depends. What's the competition?
Yeah,
that's kind of where because Facebook's.
And we are talking Amish romance writers.
Yeah, so there's probably not going to be that many people that are. But this is actually a good example because maybe for some really weird reason, Red Bull. Trying to think of a random brand here. Red Bull, the algorithm has figured out that, dude, Amish romance novel writers always click on Red Bull ads for some reason. So you might be competing with Red Bull and Monster and Starbucks and not even realize it.
Yeah, they're spending up.
Because for some reason, the algorithm figured out that those people really click on those ads.
I love
That's how Facebook works.
I love it.
I wish I could give you a better answer, but unfortunately, I don't. Again, I would be very. I'm trying to think in my head like what all the settings are, and I would be very surprised if you can't. Depends on the size.
If you had a product that was so targeted to a specific group, that would be a great opportunity to advertise to a very focused, like 98% interest. You knew that they were interested in the product you were trying to sell them, type thing. At least it matches their interest.
That is true. However, that's what what Facebook did is it flipped who the intelligence is. It used to be like the companies that knew the most about their clients, they could target specific radio stations, or they could target people in certain areas, geographic areas, because they just knew a lot of that stuff. Facebook switches that so that now Facebook knows. So you might think this one Facebook group would really convert well for some reason, but Facebook might know better. So you might put out your ad and it ends up being, you're targeting Amish romance novel writers, and those people might click on your ad, but it might be Pittsburgh Steelers fans. For some odd reason, they love your product or service.
Right.
So the algorithm switches and says, hey, we're looking for the 10 people. So these 10 people clicked on your ad. We're looking for the next 10,000 people that are most similar, and they all just so happen to be male Pittsburgh Steelers fans from Texas.
That secretly read Amish romance novels.
Secretly read Amish
As a
romance
Dallas Cowboy
novels.
fan, I've thought that for years, that Pittsburgh Steelers fans do have a habit of watching.
Of course, I had to be talking to a Cowboys fan.
Amish romance novels.
No,
we've thought it for years.
We're just reading How to Win, and we do that.
That's right. Speaking from 25 years of misery, yes, I understand. Yes,
we know how to win. So.
Still pains me. Hey, man, this has been a great conversation. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you kind of want to close out with us, and just remind people where the best place to find you online?
Sure. Anything to close out on? Since we just mostly talked about like Facebook ads and Google ads and stuff,
and you redeemed yourself at the end there with that whole Facebook algorithm thing. I mean, you far out you answered my question that you think I stumped you with.
Good. I'm glad. No, I would just, since people are probably gonna be thinking a lot about that, is don't look for the secret sauce or something like that. The secret to Facebook, Google, et cetera, is to stick to the fundamentals and just keep getting better and better and better. And the best way to do that is just put things out into the marketplace and continuously reiterate and continuously get better and better and better. I think that would be my final takeaway. And you asked like where to find more about me.
Where's the best place to catch you online?
My website, DylanOgline.com.
We'll make sure and have those in the show notes. And Dylan, it's been a pleasure to just circle back and hear your backstory, and just I really appreciate you taking the time and just walking our audience through, that especially at the end there, this idea of how to kind of narrow down and figure out how you can be successful in whatever you want to launch, because that's really the whole premise behind this is our Rising Tide startups is just helping each other, doing your part to help each other rise in a rising tide. Dylan, thanks again.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Another episode in the books. We hope you heard some great takeaways. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on iTunes and YouTube. As always, thanks for listening to Rising Tide.